my program can be derailed without notice. And when we went for training to be ministers, by the way, ministers are trained, especially people like us who have been very far away from government. We needed even more training. So in the training, we are told that the president's business is number one, followed by your business of parliament. Then the rest follows. So when you're a minister, you're actually doing the president's work. And obstructing ministers is an offense because they are on the president's business. In the days when we had monarchies, if somebody is carrying a message from the king, if you obstruct him, it is a capital offense because the king's business takes priority. So I'm here on the president's business. And as we came along the road, everybody knew that I was on a very important business. Because we had to overtake all the vehicles in order to get here on time, because the government chief whip was really on my neck, telling me to report here. My father, the late Dusman Oke, was always in this place, Namalere. And I remember one time coming to see him here when I was young. When my father was dismissed from the army in 1969, yes, we had a conversation with the late Agriawori about my father's military career. My father was in the army. He even fought in Congo, those battles which led to an attempt to impeach the government of Uganda by Daudi Ocheng. So the late Agriawori told me that my father was one of the suspects in a case at Jinja Barracks, where the Minister of Defense, Felix Onama, was forced to sit in dirty water at gunpoint, and the soldiers told him to increase their salary. So my father allegedly was part of that team that thought that that is how to negotiate for salary increase. But as he came to learn later, that's not the way it works in the army. And he was promptly arrested by military police. They were jailed for some months and then dismissed. End of story. So one time when I was arrested for walk to work, my father came to visit me in Nakasongola prison. And then he told the prison officers, he said, you know, this is truly my son. He has the same attitude. He is quite rebellious. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. So he said, my son, you have now made your point. You now go and apply for bail and go home. Because my children were suffering. There was no fuel to be put in the car. They were riding in these Kampala buses, the ones which were called Namusisi. You know those buses. But my father did not give up. All in a school called Njoro Agricultural College, based in Eldoret. So he went to Njoro. Njoro is now Egerton University in Eldoret. So he studied wheat and barley. And in a country which grows maize, beans, cassava, people were wondering why a Ugandan should study wheat and barley. But my father went there and became a scientist for real. When he came back, he joined Uganda Grain Milling Company. And his boss was Mzee Peter Okwera, who is from those sides of Agago. So my father became part of the team of scientists that started developing a formula for tip-top bread, which all of you know. Then they developed a formula for drum wheat flour. Then they developed the formula for cob maize meal. If you recognize cob, then you are of my generation. The rest of you are Maganjo people. But I know Major General Kasura knows cob. And then they also developed Novita animal feeds. The point I'm making is that, like my father as a human being who reinvented himself, a nation can also reinvent itself. So this ceremony is about reinventing Uganda from a country that imports food to a country that should export food. It is about reinventing Uganda to be a country which is focused and pulling in one direction instead of pulling in many directions. We don't have any other country. I have visited many countries in my life. From a young age, I started from America. One day I won an essay writing competition, and the ambassador, the then Johnny Carson, who is President Biden's special advisor on Africa today, he was the ambassador to Uganda. He gave me $150, a box of books, and then an air ticket to go to America to roam around for 6 weeks. So I roamed around. I went to New York walking like this, even knocking people. I went to San Francisco. That was the first time I met homosexuals. Then I went to Oklahoma, where they don't tolerate homosexuals at all. In a city called Tulsa, they call it the buckle of the Bible Belt. It is not only the Bible Belt, but it is the buckle itself, the one which locks the belt. I went to Washington, D.C., the so-called swamp of Trump. I went to Miami. I saw the variety of America. And I discovered that America is strong because of local communities that are organized economically. The government comes in to do big things. The communities do other things. I went to Iowa. In Iowa, they have something called community-supported agriculture. A village, like an LC1, sits down, and then they say, Pascamenya can take care of our needs to supply eggs and chicken. Then they say, the Honorable Anthony Akol can provide meat. Then another one can provide the rice. Now, at the beginning of each season, I know how many eggs I need. So instead of Honorable Pascamenya going to the bank, we become the source of her capital. All of us who love eggs, we go and give her money. And she signed something saying, we promise every week to deliver a tray of eggs. So she's very busy producing eggs. We have already given her money interest-free, and our families are assured of eggs. It is called community-supported agriculture. I believe today is about supporting the communities to be busy doing things. There's enough money in our communities to keep us going. There's no need for anyone to even go to another village because the shopping center will always be there. So that's in America. I went to Australia. In Australia, I went when I was a student, and those days, some of us were really communists. We were on the Eastern Bloc, and we thought that the Eastern Bloc would overthrow the Western Bloc, and then the world revolution will occur. Unfortunately, the Berlin Wall fell and we were on the wrong side. I was in Prague. The body was known as the International Union of Students. So we used to go demonstrating. So we went to Australia to demonstrate against the Gulf War. Can you imagine somebody flying over 20 hours to go and shout on the streets of Sydney? Of course, Uganda hadn't sent even one soldier. We never even sent one rifle. But we thought that the cause was our cause, the cause of world peace. So we were there shouting why Australia had sent frigates, these big ships. And we were shouting, bring the frigates home. No Gulf War. Bring the frigates home. The whole day we shouted with the police looking at us. Then we went and had the disco. But when you are 23, those are the best things. At least you have something to tell your grandchildren. So I found that Australia is largely a desert, but they can produce. The environment is very, very hostile. Snakes, thorns, but God commanded us to turn the world into our kingdom, to become kings. Kingdom means a king and a dominion. That's the origin of the word kingdom. So we are supposed to be at the pinnacle of creation, to subdue nature, not to adjust to nature. And in the laws of motion of society, which I'm sure Major General Kasura had an overdose of, and also Honorable Tumwebaze and Honorable Hamson, in our classes of dialectical materialism, that society moves according to certain laws. To move from a primitive form of life where you meet all your needs, you wake up in the morning like those fellows of the gods must be crazy. Now that is the kind of life. You remember that half-naked man. If he wants meat, he just goes with his poison arrow, gets meat. He doesn't need to have a cattle farm and so on. Then the Europeans came and said, no, this is now poaching. It's not hunting. In one of the films, they arrested the guy. They took him to court. He didn't know what the judge was saying. And when they asked him to say something, he told the judge through a translator, that judge, I'm not a greedy man. The man who arrested me wants this antelope. Let him take it. I'll go and get another one. So he started walking out. Then they arrested him. Now that is the primitive life from which we start, where man starts getting basic tools like a stone to cut. Then he gets a spear, because basically a man is supposed to have only his limbs to use. Then the spear becomes an extension of the hand. The stone also becomes an extension of the hand. Now, in society, what they call modes of production, they keep giving way to the other. And that law will never change. That's why there are certain things that we do which are only catalytic. You're only being a catalyst. But even without you taking any action, it would happen. The way, you know the formula, I know Tumwebaze is a scientist. Actually, if Tumwebaze was born a girl, he would have done engineering, because he missed joining the faculty of engineering by about 1.5 marks. Yeah, so he says his daughter has gone to do engineering. So your gender now was a disadvantage to you. So, the hydrogen peroxide with the 2 molecules of hydrogen and 2 molecules of oxygen. If you just put it here overnight, in the morning it will have turned into water. The additional molecule of oxygen will have escaped. But you can let that reaction happen in a few minutes using what scientists call a catalyst. For instance, potassium permanganate. So potassium permanganate added to hydrogen peroxide will cause that chemical reaction which will make that oxygen molecule escape quickly. Then you have water instantly. So what you are doing, Honorable Putumwebaze, is to be a catalyst in the community for production. Because the whole use, but it is too slow, as we have been told. So these are catalytic interventions. Why do we need catalytic intervention? Because we are late. Africa is lagging behind. As Julius Nyerere said, while others are walking, we must be running because we are lagging so far behind. So we need that so that we can take advantage of what they call economies of scale. And to me, that is the meaning of today. Of course, as members of parliament, you are going to go and you will have other discussions, land tenure, customary, communal. According to the laws of motion of society, all those things eventually will be sorted out. It is scientific. It is an immutable law. I don't need to be a prophet to say the sun will rise tomorrow from the east, because that is a law that has been studied and proven. And you can use that formula. So all these modes that we have in dialectical materialism is comparable to the shell of an egg. So the shell of an egg is useful to protect the chick inside the egg to grow, to eat that yolk and become a live chick. And that shell is important. It must be protected. But now when the chick is to get out and begin the cycle of life again, that shell must be broken. So there are certain things in society which will give way to things which are new, so that those cycles must continue. You can turn it upside down, you can look at it from the left, from the right, but you will say Mao was right. Because it is scientific. So there are certain things that eventually, of course, now if you go to South Africa, you find those guys of the gods must be crazy. Even Europe also had this primitive peasant society. Then they had so-called enclosure movements and so on. And that is why the Right Honorable Hamson Oboa, I call upon you to really make sure that the caucus members are grounded in these scientific laws. Because they were studied by very serious people. It's not a question of who wants to be MP, who wants to win elections, who is the president of Uganda. Those laws are there. They are like financial laws of compound interest, for instance. Those of you who are paying loans, you know what I'm talking about. There are people, there's a man who went and shot dead an Indian. He didn't know compound interest. He borrowed money, then he went and said, "You're a thief. How come you're now asking me to pay all that money?" It is called compound interest. Because if I borrow 1 million at 10% compounded, if I don't pay this month the installment and interest, I'm now going to pay 1.1 and 10% of that. Then 1.12 and so on. You know, compound interest has to be understood so that you don't kill the banker. So apart from the caucus meeting to discuss other matters, and we are still around. We are here, that is our job. Me, I want to die empty. I want to empty all the knowledge I have before I depart. I don't want people talking a lot around my coffin. Oh, he was this, he was... I don't want that. Let me say what I have to say while I'm still alive. pass on the knowledge that I know. So, I am from USA, as you know. And my MP, though I'm from Gulu generally, but I'm from USA. That's the United States of Amoro. My MP is there from the United States of Amoro, USA. You know, Amoro is the one which has very interesting stories in the whole of Acholi. That is where the Lamogi rebellion was, though the president is always ridiculing us, that our people only killed one white man and we are always singing about it. So the other day, finally, they asked him, so how many did your people kill? At least we killed one. So don't stop us from singing about it. At least that was our... So we are the original national resistance movement. The real resistance. Resistance against the real enemy of the African people. Started from there. So you cannot teach us resistance. Your resistance started maybe 1965. By that time, we had resisted and paid a very high price for it. Of course, we were defeated because these guys had machine guns and so on, and they had too many collaborators around them. Some of the neighbors of our people, even in Acholi, some of those chiefs were even slave traders and so on. So Africa has that mixed story, which we need to understand. So, land can grow crops. The Balalo are living. The president defined who the Balalo are in his executive order. According to the executive order, the Balalo are not a tribe. He said Balalo. He said, and by the way, they are everywhere. They even break the president's fence in Kisozi. They steal his cows. They are a nuisance generally. So I want our people from the north to stop thinking that, you know, these are people who are maybe a particular tribe. They were chased from Tanzania. You know, they keep rotating like this. Now I hear some of them are hiding their cows in fenced places while listening to see what is happening next. They are very tricky. But the president generally says these are indisciplined people. And he defined them. So, this is not a debate about any tribe. This is a debate about indisciplined people, and the matter is going to be sorted. Now, when the Balalo leave, will our people go back to hunting anyiri, this edible rat, and the squirrels on the vast land? The answer lies in what Honorable Tumwebaze and the government chief whip has brought. Honorable Tumwebaze, you are almost 20 years late. We wouldn't have had this issue of Balalo if you had come in time. If you had kept time. You see, there's nothing about saying we like this part of Uganda, we hate this part of Uganda. Those who grow tea have got more money than all these tractors. Do you MPs read your budget books properly? Or you just say aye and no? No, let me now talk to you really seriously. Tea. You know, the British came and deceived us in the north. Coffee doesn't grow in the north. Grow cotton and tobacco. So we went to cotton, tobacco. I used to sleep in the barn curing tobacco. My first job was learning how to sort tobacco. Now, two gentlemen from Acholi, the late Peter Abe, a teacher, and the late Wilson Lutara, decided to plant coffee in their homes in protest as a form of resistance against the British. Saying, okay, you are saying it doesn't grow, but it grows. The way Galileo took a stand against the Pope, when the Pope was saying the earth doesn't move, instead it is the sun which moves. So before being executed, he said with his last breath, but it moves. Even if you kill me, it moves. So those old men were saying, coffee grows here. But because they wanted us in the army, they saw people as tall as Akol Anthony, who when he stands up and he said, "Stand, stop," you think about what his hands will do to your neck. So, and the minimum height was 5'8". Now, myself, I wouldn't qualify to join the army. And the first step of the interview was something like a goal post. So the trainer would say, if you can pass under that thing, then go, goodbye. If your head knocks it, come back for part 2 of the interview. So me, I would generally just walk under it and go home, because I'm not 5'8", I'm 5'6". Now, to our great annoyance, we have discovered that coffee is growing. And even tea is now growing in Zeu. Tea can grow in Agoro. These are cool areas. Now even matoke is growing, you know. But because of this colonial philosophy, you know, for us we believe that, you know, you eat millet so that you are strong. Okot Pabitek wrote that, you know, the stones from the grinding stone enter your bones and you are very tough, you know. And that's our makeup anyway. Because, by the way, life is an attitude. So don't blame us for our attitude. And that has put us into trouble, we from the north. That attitude normally puts us into trouble, because even when we are only 3, you can think we are 100. And many people don't like our attitude. But we mean well for Uganda. We have no problem with Uganda. We actually mean very well for Uganda. We love Uganda. We are ready to die for Uganda. We are patriots. But that attitude, it seems there is nothing we can do about it. Now we don't mind, because we don't understand the language. Now, my father, who was a staunch UPC, would drink his beer, and when he belches, he even goes, UPC. He loved his party so much. And our mother, who was from the West, used to tell him, my brothers are coming, they are going to chase you away. He said, no, matoke eaters cannot chase us from power. Now that's the attitude I'm talking about. Because these stories must be told to our children, so that they can understand the myths by which we have lived and died. So when you hear people talking about, I don't know what, Bachwezi and what, these stories have to be told. Because unless we start telling those stories freely, particularly in the forum that we are creating, the national dialogue, we cannot build the nation. We must have nation building. And that's how other countries have overcome. When you go to Germany, they will tell you, yeah, Adolf Hitler came to power and said his government was the beginning of knowledge. Every book published before he became the leader is irrelevant knowledge. So he organized national book banning. All books were banned. Can you believe that such a thing happened in Germany? So people had to smuggle books out of Germany because a dictator had come and said he's the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. So all books must be banned. Then he decided that the Jews were the problem, and even had scientists doing experiments. How long does it take for a Jew to die when he's left outside in the snow? Can you imagine that madness? The Germans now teach those lessons to their children and say, this has been our journey. So all these journeys that we have had, we must talk about them. So back to my father. My father says, matoke eaters, you must be joking. We are here to stay. One day the matoke eaters arrived. We had made a small hole in the fence which we used for escaping to go and dance at Ginger Nurse's hostel. He was always telling us to close the hole. That day when the matoke eaters arrived, he used that hole to exit. So, from his hideout, now he called. He said, "Dad, why did you run away?" He said, you know me, they just take one look at me and say, Anyanya. At least you are not too typical. And in any case, those are your uncles. So he said, "But how were they? Were they good?" He said, "Yeah, they were very friendly." Ironically, when our people had overthrown Obote, they came and robbed us. When my brother tried to speak Acholi to one of them, he received a hot slap. These are the ironies of life which we have to talk about. Anyway, for now, has to be respected. It is very important to respect that. Sometime in the future, the eggshell may give way for the chick to come out. But for now, that shell is needed. Please preserve it. It is delicate, it is what? Preserve it. Our people need it. And we base our arguments on the Juba Peace Agreement. Our people are extremely vulnerable. You come with money, buy 50 acres, then you bring 200 cows. Then you are actually colonizing 300 acres in the neighborhood because nobody has ability to cultivate. Your cows go fat, grow fat, you go and sell them, then you come and buy the entire land. Is that fair? So those are the things that we are talking about. So I want to commend you, Honorable Tumwebaze, for introducing this. Let this be a beginning so that we can have what the president called production for the market, not production for the stomach. I'm sure if he had written a speech, those are the things he would have said. But I've listened to him so many times. By the way, for those of us who sit in cabinet, the cabinet always ends with a free seminar presided over by the president. It is actually the most interesting part of the cabinet. Because you have, you see, if you are sitting in a classroom with somebody who has fought in Mozambique, he has done what? He has done a lot of things. Some of them may be not successful, but you can learn a lot from listening to such a person. So, I believe that's the reason why he endorsed your petition in Chankwanzi. And when you are hunters, you don't look good when you go back with cassava. They say hunting means you bring something which has blood. Surely you can't say you have come from hunting and you have cassava. So, dear members of parliament, this is good hunting. Irrespective of your political parties, you have hunted well. I see my MP there. You have hunted well and share the credit with one another. Because for now you are working as a team of MPs. When the whistle is blown again, you'll go back to your scaffolds to decide who should come back. But for now, pull in the same direction. Understand there's a Greater North Parliamentary Caucus. I don't know whether it meets and what it discusses, but these are some of the things you need to start discussing. And I think you'll get even more. So congratulations on successfully hunting and not coming back empty-handed. I hope that you heed the minister's call for maintenance of these tractors. They have become now places where chicken are resting on the roof of the tractor. So I want to ask Honorable Tumwebaze to ensure that the people are empowered to report any abuse in this. That is the highest form of accountability. I do not know what this has cost the Uganda government, But now that we are assembling electric buses in Uganda, don't we have an opportunity in future to assemble tractors in Uganda so that we can meet the demand? Here, you have started assembling tractors. Excellent. Yeah. As you know, Corona taught us to become self-reliant. COVID has taught us that we must rely on ourselves. We started making our own sanitizers. So let this challenge of the Greater North land use issues teach us to start assembling our tractors. I have been told that we need 5,000 tractors per year over the next 5 years if we are to be sustainable. I finally want to call upon the members of parliament to be examples of farming also. Because I know the Honorable Minister of Agriculture was at one time the chairman of the National Farmers Association. And the first time I met him at Jinja, when he was hosting a fair, I asked him, "Are you a real farmer or a telephone farmer?" Then he said, "I'm a real farmer." I've recently been seeing him posing on Twitter with the cows. And so I want to appeal to the members of parliament, chairpersons, be the examples of farming. I know some of you may feel shy that you will be criticized, that they brought tractors, but they dug their own gardens. You see, charity must begin at home in this case. Even if all you have is 2 acres, 5 acres, let there be something that can demonstrate this. Next to that, I appeal to the Minister of Agriculture to pool the resources that he has, the bulldozers, to go for bush clearing. Our places have some trees that are very, very difficult to clear. Just preserve our traditional trees, like the yam, the shea butter. It is important. You have given us the tractors, but we need machines that can remove some of this. And I know you have bulldozers, you have backhoes. I have been to some big people's farms. They are holding these machines. They are packed there in their compound permanently. They are no longer being used. For the sake of peace, I'm not going to name anybody. But if I was in my old mode of loving war, by now I would be giving a few names. The one-man army. So we need bush clearing equipment in addition to that. And members of parliament, when you demand from the government, it doesn't mean that you are opposing the government. Yeah. So the total cost of the 27 tractors and implements, which I assume includes the plow, disc harrow. Okay. So the total cost has been 3.24 billion. And the walking tractors, here it is written walk behind tractors. I don't know who can walk in front of a tractor. The total cost of 326 units is 8.15 billion. Let us ensure value for money for this. I found one model in a beam, which I like to share. Now the people who are winning elections, they are winning LC1 and so on. I therefore end by calling upon you members of parliament to persist in demanding more from the government. This is our government. Maybe for many years we were perceived as people not supporting the government, but we had our reasons. Because if I have a stone in my shoe and I'm walking like this, you can't say I'm posing. I'm the one who is feeling the pain. So, some people would say, look at those northerners, the way they are walking, posing. We are not posing. There was a stone in our shoe. called Joseph Kony, LRA, IDP camps, and so on. So you have now removed the stone. Now allow us to walk in peace, and move together as a country. To me, that is a lesson to you, the members of parliament. Remember, it is the door hinge which creaks, which gets grease. If the door does not cry, no one will put oil in it. When you try to open a door and it keeps making noise, squeak, squeak, then say, I'm tired of this door. Especially if you are young and you want to escape at night. You look for oil and put it there so that it shuts up. So this is a necessary noise. So fellow Northerners, let us reduce on the unnecessary noise and make necessary noise. Thank you very much for God and my country.